Hey gang, David Gupple, Thinker Farmer here. I want to do another video on the series Hometown Mentors. I've already discussed CAP some and discussed my parents a little. I want to talk about another. I also have discussed briefly Super Wrench, but I'll probably tell a little bit more about him in a later video. I wanted to talk about Coach. One of my other hometown mentors. I grew up in the city of Gonzales, and anyway, I guess I should have told you all where I am. We're at one of the lease farms, and we've got a creek bottom here, and an old tree came down. It's been rotting out. Went ahead and cut it up. And once I finish this video, I'm going to pile it up out of the pasture. And it's a nice Saturday evening. And anyway, back to Coach. When I met Coach, he was already about late 60s, early 70s, and he lived, probably half a mile, maybe, down the same street as we did, just outside the city limits. And Coach, well, that wasn't his real name, but we all called him Coach because he was a basketball and a softball coach for 30, 40, maybe more years than that. And I didn't spend, with all my mentors, this is probably true, but I never spend as much time with them as I want to. But there were three critical lessons Coach taught me, and he's passed away now. He passed away about 6 years ago. I miss him. Good guy, good Christian man. Loved gardening. But I'd often go over to his place and help him plant tomatoes, or you name it. Did a lot of splitting firewood with him. He had a pretty good wood lot, and he was thrilled that I was going to be a farmer. And I remember when I graduated high school, he showed up for my little get-together at the family, and he gave me $100 and a card with a John Deere tractor on it, and he said, hopefully that $100 will help with the down payment on your tractor. And he was always a guy with a lot of wit, an old country boy, and from Mississippi. Anyway, the three lessons I want to share with y'all as you're going through your farming journey, I think they're very important. And Coach was a simple man, but he had a lot of homespun wisdom. So really not quotes, but three different stories. So one time he had me over to his house. He and his wife were going on a trip in their motorhome, and he wanted me to wash it down. And I started it on the project, soaked things up, and started working. And he said, now, David, if you are going to get this job done effectively, if you're going to do a really good job, and if you're going to do it in a efficient and quick manner, proficiently, then I need you to go ahead and split the motorhome into sections, he said. However you want to do it. You can split it top, middle, bottom. You can split it from left to right. You can take the windows on first or however, but pick a section, focus on that, get that done, and then move on. And went ahead and did that. And really, you could have just soaked the whole, you could have just started to move along, soaked the whole thing down, gone all the way around, and then come back and washed or rinsed it off. But if you'd done that, all the dirt would have already dried, as large a motorhome as it was. And the bigger thing was the human mind can only focus on one thing at a time. It cannot, and do well at it. Well, the human mind can multitask. You can only do one thing well at a time. Similar to what Cap said, doing one thing at a time. And essentially, in different jobs I would do for him, whether it was weed eating around his house, I did basic menial tasks for him, as well as fun jobs like cutting down trees and splitting firewood. He always wanted to break the job down into pieces. And as you're in your farming journey, break the process of learning down into pieces. However you want to do it, whether you're focusing on, you're trying to build a 5 or 6 different species on your property. Great. Take 1 or 2 at a time and work on those. And after 3 or 4 years, add another couple, then another couple. The learning curve for each animal enterprise you're going to deal with is going to be different, and it's going to take more than a few months to master it. So break it down into pieces. Same thing if you're working on marketing. You can't improve your marketing at every single aspect. An example of this right now for me would be, I'd like to also have a Twitter account, and I'd also like to have multiple video platforms to be streaming from, just to be more versatile and out there. But because of time and just trying to master YouTube, I'm simply focusing on getting good at doing YouTube videos and just building a brand there. Maybe later I'll transition to having a Twitter account or something else, but the same principle applies. You don't try to start 3 or 4 things in order to succeed. You need to take one thing at a time, just one thing, similar to CAP, but break it down. You know, you need to understand how many pieces there are to the puzzle from the start. You need to see the big picture, but break it down into sections. Another thing, he was a coach, and I remember me and my brothers, we'd go out there in the field, and we'd be straining on some logs, and he was a coach, so he knew what the difference was between a team and an individual. And he'd watch us strain for a while on working separately, and then he'd say, "David, come over and help your brother." He'd always emphasize simple principles. He says, if you'll work as a team, we'll get way more done. And it definitely was that way. He always wanted to see us as individuals have a good work environment and enjoy the day and be one with each other. And I think it's amazing today how much with a win-lose paradigm, a lot of individuals think that life is a zero-sum game. That essentially means they think that there is no, I think I said that right, a zero-sum game. They essentially, some individuals have been trained to think that in order for them to win, someone else must lose. In order for them to take possession of a goal or to achieve something great, someone else has to give something up. And that's not the way life works. If you choose to go for essentially a win-win paradigm, as Stephen Covey would say in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, essentially what that means is there is always a way for you and your team and the other individuals around you to win together. And that's what you need to go for. Now, reality is, if you're not winning for yourself, then you're really not winning for anybody else. So you do need to make sure that you succeed. But in the process, you need to take into account other people around you and win for them too as a team. The last thing, Coach, probably the biggest thing I'll always cherish and remember him for, is one time he left on a trip with his wife, and he needed me to take care of his chickens. And I think he was gone a week and a half, and there's a couple other things I did for him. And he was a great guy, but he wasn't very good at keeping his chickens in. He had an old chicken coop, a lot of rusty wire. I probably did a patch job, every 3 days, because chickens would get out of his coop, and but didn't lose any to predators. And I had some sort of misunderstanding with how he wanted his feed fed out, and I ran out of feed a day early, which they were layers and they could handle it. And he got back, got feed to them, and when I went over to see him afterwards, he wanted to pay me and thank me for what I'd done, I brought up the fact that we'd run out of feed a day early. I think I hadn't rationed the feed properly. And he said, "David, I don't want you to ever mention that to me again. You did a good job with the chickens. They were fed until a day before. I got them feed. They're good. I appreciated your work. Put it behind you." And that was the way he said it. He said, "David, that's behind you. Move on with life." And I think this is probably one of the hardest things for me as an individual, and especially any young aspiring farmer out there who is seeking to learn, seeking to grow, and you're just facing a lot of challenges as you grow, and invariably you're going to fail at something. And you have to learn from your mistakes, but it's a human tendency to relive the moment instead of engaging in the present. So do this one thing for yourself. Once you have failed at something, if it's a major deal, take out a notepad, take out a pen. Some people that are visual, they won't remember it unless I visually show them. So carry your waterproof, I guess it goes without saying, I think every farmer, I agree with Greg Judy, every farmer should carry a day timer or a notepad with them to write important things on. I take it a step farther. I carry a waterproof pouch. This is from Duluth Trading. That's just where I got mine. You don't need to buy it from them, but carry a waterproof pouch. Ziploc bags don't do the job. They rip and then you ruin your whole notepad. When you fail, write down your failure. Write down what you learned from it. And then lastly, write down what you're going to do differently. If you do that every day, at the end of every day, you take a couple minutes and remember what you did wrong and what you learned that you're going to do differently next time, you will improve and progress and move forward. But the one thing you can't do is relive it. As Coach would say, that's behind you. So move on to the next thing. Anyway, Coach has been gone now 6 years this September, and I miss him. But everything he taught me is going to live on in me. And whenever you have a mentor that takes the time to share something with you, listen carefully and allow it to become a part of your life. Anyway, that's all for today. Thinker Farmer signing off. God bless.